Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Midday Western U.S. Regional Forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, with the emergence of some national news here with some of the fires that are in California, I thought we'd take a look here at the near-term forecast put together by the high-resolution rapid refresh model of where we're expecting to see smoke across much of the western United States. Now, compared to past seasons, this is certainly not looking anything like we've seen in the last several years. But we do notice that in addition to having the mountain fire there that's in parts of Northern California, we are watching quite a bit of active fire activity, although mostly smaller fires in parts of Arizona and also parts of eastern Oregon. Overall, though, much of the western United States is largely free from some of the smoky conditions we can normally get at this time in August. We'll keep a close eye on this in the coming days and weeks, but certainly we want to understand the impacts of what's going on with the southwestern monsoon and drought. So let's turn our attention to the southwestern monsoon. And looking here at some of the data we get from NOAA, we notice that in the blue bars here, this shows us how 2019 is comparing to normal. And certainly this has been a lackluster year in terms of the performance of the monsoon across much of Arizona and across much of the desert southwest, certainly well below our normal on rainfall. We can maybe see it a little bit clearer here by looking at the last 30 days in terms of percent of normal rainfall. We've seen a lot of action here coming through New Mexico and then lighting up big storms that have gone off the Rocky Mountains, especially in parts of Colorado, which again just yesterday got hit pretty hard. But keeping our focus out there on the western part of the United States, we do see a lot of regions that are well below average in terms of precipitation over the last month. So that brings us to our latest drought monitor, which was released yesterday in the middle of the day. We can see here that although California is still drought free, which is a phenomenal thing to see, I think what's important to understand here is where the drought has been developing. So there's a neat thing that the drought monitor makes. It's called the class change map. And what we're looking at here is how much we've seen in terms of a drought monitor class change over the last month. And due to the lack of that monsoonal moisture, you can see that parts of Arizona now with a one-class degradation with time here. We didn't expect any changes here in the Pacific Northwest, just given that this is a time of year that it's supposed to be dry. And even despite some of the recent rainfall that we had in this area, still showing up here with the drought spread through parts of western Oregon and most of Washington, northern Idaho, and parts of Montana. So, are we expecting much rain in the next few days? Some widely scattered showers and storms in the next 24 hours here through parts of the Pacific Northwest, but outside of that, no big surge of tropical moisture coming out here to help along with our monsoon, although widely scattered showers and storms tucked away in far southern Arizona. But what I want to be watching is this. There is a hurricane that we need to be paying close attention to that is moving here out of the East Pacific. That is something I think we should be keeping a closer eye on. But that previous map there, well, that's what we're going to be getting, and this is what it'll be added to. We just look here over the last 48 hours in terms of precipitation. Now, as that first wave moved on, which we talked about in earlier this week's videos, we can see here some locally heavy rainfall in some places in parts of Oregon, and then getting into really the mountains in Idaho and Montana. That is the storm system that we're going to be watching very closely over the next several days, moving through the Canadian prairies. That's going to impact much of the eastern two-thirds of the United States. But we notice here that down in the Four Corners states, we did bring some widely scattered showers and storms. You can just see them every day popping on the mountains here. But outside of that, not a big surge of monsoonal moisture that got into Arizona. But speaking of moisture, I wanted you to watch this animation. This is a precipitable water map, and what it's telling us in reds here is where we have higher than normal precipitable water. That means how much water is physically in the atmosphere over a location. The blues being the drier air. And what I want to pay close attention to is watch what's happening here with this tropical system that's running up along the Baja. You're going to see that by Sunday, getting into Monday, the moisture from that tropical system now moves just offshore here, late Monday night into Tuesday morning off the west coast of California. And then you notice this. Look at this moisture kind of turning inland here and pushing into California, pushing into the Pacific Northwest. This is really raising compared to normal. That's what we're looking at here. This is an anomaly. So compared to normal, the amount of moisture we typically have in the air, such that by the time we get to the end of the month here, and we have a second tropical pulse that comes in, we may be at most increasing cloud cover in parts of California, but certainly this is trying to juice up the atmosphere with time. But we're juicing up the atmosphere also at a time where we're expecting quite a bit of heat to be coming in. But let's take a look at precipitation before we get to those temperatures. This is just running our high-resolution NAM model out all the way through early in the morning on Sunday. If we just play this again here, you do know there's a little wave that is moving in there. You can see it up in parts of the Pacific Northwest. Little wave that is moving in, that's going to be bringing in some scattered showers through parts of Washington, getting into northern Idaho and then Montana. I'm not looking out here for anything severe, at least no major indications of a lot of severe weather. And then also, if you notice down there in parts of southern Arizona and New Mexico, we do see some more pop-up showers on what is very weak monsoonal flow. So that's at least getting you through the near term here. Stretching this out a little bit, well, let's pay attention to that tropical system down here as we played our European model. Now, we do know that these systems, as they move north along the Baja, they typically weaken. Okay, so that's expected. But it's what happens to the moisture of this tropical system that eventually gets up into the atmosphere and over California as we get into early next week. And we notice that outside of that, there's not a whole lot going on. But still, we're going to watch these tropical systems coming out here and pushing their way up toward, putting their moisture in the atmosphere and pushing it up toward California. So outside of the rain showers we saw coming into the northwest, nothing really to talk about here over the coming days. We do see that by the time we get out here, now this is out at the 30th of August, maybe some better monsoonal moisture for Arizona. But again, we've been quite far behind so far this year. So just stretching out here to the 30th, looking at total accumulated precipitation from the European model. Again, this is far less than what we normally like to see here being forecast for the desert monsoon. Talk about temperatures now. Starting off in the day on Friday, I'm going to focus on the northwest first. What do we see? Well, we see temperatures that are quite seasonable. Temperatures in the upper 80s, maybe peaking into the lower 90s in the Snake River Valley here. But Oregon, Washington, very normal temperatures. Getting into the day on Saturday, we get a little more heat in the Snake River Valley, but the Columbia Basin staying there in the upper 80s, potentially crack a 90 in some locations. But now getting you through Sunday into Monday, it's not until we see next Tuesday's temperatures that we start to see those lower 90s really showing up a whole lot more over a whole lot more area here in the Pacific Northwest. And we'll talk about the heat that's coming into California here soon. But this is now next Wednesday, getting out to next Thursday. So the next few days here, not showing too much of a deviation from normal in the Pacific Northwest, but then getting into some heat as we see this broader ridge retreating west by the time we get to the end of the month of August. Sliding a little farther south, take a look at the temperatures we're looking out for here on Friday. Some triple-digit heat coming in on Friday through the Central Valley of California, while we're still seeing 105 to 110 in parts of the desert down here in Southern California and Arizona. Playing this forward, let's see what happens as we get into Saturday. Again, another day where approaching triple-digit heat in the south, so it's certainly on here in the southern part of the California, Central Valley. But watch this as I get you into Sunday. Again, upper 90s, lower triple digits. Monday, now we're talking about seeing temperatures across much of the valley here in the 100 to 105 range. And then getting out to Tuesday and into Wednesday. Now, why Wednesday do we see a little bit of a cool down? This may be where we get some more of that cloud cover coming in here into the Sacramento Valley, coming into San Francisco with that tropical system that's coming out, here along the Baja right now. But still, the San Joaquin Valley keeping on the higher heat with time. And I'll take you all the way up to next Thursday, and that may be some relief, primarily due to some additional cloud cover in the Sacramento Valley, okay? All right, what is causing all of this heat to return out west? Well, this is where we're expecting to get by the end of the month with the flow of the atmosphere. We've lost that big blocking pattern in the Pacific. We do see that the jet stream is tending to favor a broader trough, bringing in really cool air for this time of year into the eastern two-thirds of the country, while this ridge really gets firmly established out west. And take a look at what it does to our temperature patterns looking longer term. So over the next 5 days, yes, we certainly see some of the heat is on here, not only in California, but spreading back into the Four Corner states. And days 5 through 10, even though we might get a little bit of relief from some of that cloud cover, overall, the western part of the United States is where the heat is going to be as that ridge builds in, while much cooler air slides into into the Midwest. And that is a pretty sizable change that we've been talking about now this week that's important to understand for production ag in the middle part of the country. But the heat is coming on out west. And even taking you out here all the way through days 10 through 15, we still see much of the western United States hanging on to its warmer bias. I'm going to watch this carefully because typically this time of year, what gives us cooler anomalies in the southwest is an increased amount of rainfall. Now, it's not showing up too terribly well in the forecast model's prediction of rainfall, but it's showing up in the temperature field. So as we get into the first week of September, that's what we're talking about here, maybe a decent resurgence here of some moisture that could come in and help relieve some of the drought in parts of Arizona and parts of the desert down there that we do need to see. But to finish this up, let me show you this next animation. This is a sliding 1-week window of temperature anomalies that's going to go through the next 6 weeks. And what we tend to notice here is that along the west coast of the United States, we're going into the next month and a half carrying a higher risk of being warmer than normal than cooler than normal. And a lot of that is due to the fact that we've got a lot of warm water here, some low sea ice concentration in the atmosphere is wanting to favor more ridging over there in the Gulf of Alaska than troughing. Now, we're going to keep a close eye on it. This is just one example from one model as to what we could be expecting to see, but it's been a really robust feature in the forecast evolution of the European model to see this. So it looks as though late summer heat, above average temperatures, will more than likely be the name of the game as we press forward. Well, I'll be looking at it all weekend and studying it early next week to release in our next long-range update. But by then, we'll even have some newer data and better evidence as to whether or not this heat's going to continue to stick around. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this forecast video and hope that you all have a great weekend. We will talk to you again soon. Check out my.nutrienagsolutions.com to see all of our forecast content, especially my next long-range update, which comes out in the morning next Wednesday. Talk to you again soon. Have a great weekend. Thank you.